The WWE Draft has come and gone, and having seen what Triple H did with it, I'm a lot less enthusiastic about the next one, as I was coming into this one. And I have an idea for how they should be handling these going forward, but let's take a look at this one first. Raw definitely got the better end of it this year. The Intercontinental title picture and the women's division both got a big boost. These were how the draft rounds played out on night 2 this past Monday. Round 1. Raw picks up Imperium, which is Gunther and Ludwig Kaiser, and Damage Control, Io Sky, Dakota Kai, Kairi Sane, and Asuka. SmackDown picks up Jade Cargill and Kevin Owens. Bianca and Jade, both the first picks in each of the first rounds for SmackDown. And with the Damage Control switch, just like that, Raw picked up 4 new additions to its women's division. Everybody else stays the same, so that's how the first round played out. Round number 2, Raw selects CM Punk and Braun Strowman. SmackDown selects The Pride, which is Bobby Lashley, Angelo Dawkins, Montez Ford, and B-Fab, and Tiffany Stratton. Not one person changed brands in the second round. Every name I just mentioned was already on the brand that they were drafted to. Now, as far as Strowman is concerned, Strowman actually made his return to TV on Monday night. He came out and he chased away Logan Paul and the heels. He came out to save Jey Uso. I thought maybe he would have some involvement in this Uncle Howdy stuff. Eric Rowan is clearly going to be a part of it, Alexa Bliss. Doesn't mean that Strowman will not be a part of it, but I didn't get that indication by him coming out and playing the babyface here. It was the same Braun Strowman we saw last time. Whatever they're doing with the Uncle Howdy stuff, they seem to be keeping those people in the shadows. I would think if he was going to be a part of it, they would have held him out. They didn't do that. But he's a big baby face for them to get back on the Raw brand. I still think SmackDown would have been the better place for him as an opponent for Cody eventually, but they put him on Raw. Round number 3, Raw selects the LWO. Rey Mysterio, Carlito, which is weird, Dragon Lee, Cruz del Toro, Joaquin Wilde, and Zelina Vega. And Raw selects Drew McIntyre, who finally signed a new deal with WWE that will keep him in the company, it is believed, through at least 2027. Drew McIntyre is staying right where he is, to the surprise of certainly not this guy, and it shouldn't be to the surprise of anyone, really. What the hell reason would he have to leave? He's in the best position he's ever been in all the years he's been working for this company. His first run, his most recent run, his stock has never been higher. Creatively, he's got to be so creatively fulfilled right now. He's got this big show in Glasgow coming up next month. You know he's going to be headlining that show. Just won the World Heavyweight title, albeit for 5 minutes, at WrestleMania this year. Has a big feud lined up with CM Punk as soon as Punk is cleared to come back. He's on top of the world right now. But McIntyre posted online, he said he trusted Paul Levesque when he came back in 2017, and he still trusts him now. And as far as signing, he went on the Pat McAfee show and he said that he was never leaving. And it was just a matter of making the right deal. Because, of course, there was no reason for him to leave. What was he looking for? I mean, what would he have been looking for if he wanted to leave? More money? I'm sure he's getting paid very well. Is it creative freedom? I mean, what's not to like about what he's been doing lately on TV? You hear sometimes, and Jim Ross likes to use this expression a lot, that in wrestling it's about 2 things, the cash and the creative. Well, the cash is probably really fucking good, and the creative is also pretty damn good right now. So he's got no reason to be unhappy. And if you are a Drew McIntyre fan, if you are a WWE fan, then you also should be very happy that he is staying right where he is. Meanwhile, in round number 3, Raw, as I said, gets the LWO and Drew. SmackDown selects Legado del Fantasma, Santos Escobar, Angel, Humberto, and Elektra Lopez. And Shinsuke Nakamura. Nakamura going from Raw to SmackDown, it means nothing. It's a lateral move. It will not mean a thing. LWO, though, and Legado finally get separated, so that's good. Round number 4, Raw selects the Judgment Day, made up of Finn Balor, Dominic Mysterio, and JD McDonough. So no Rhea Ripley. She was not eligible for the draft. And Raw selects Ilya Dragunov from NXT, the former NXT champion, who is now on the same brand with Gunther, plus Sheamus, plus Drew McIntyre. And hell, you could throw in Pete Dunne and Tyler Bate as well. All on the same brand. Amazing. SmackDown selects Naomi and the team of Chelsea Green and Piper Niven. That's number 4. Round number 5. Raw selects The New Day and Lyra Valkyria, the former NXT Women's Champion, which is another pickup for the Raw Women's Division. SmackDown selects Pretty Deadly and the team of Candice LeRae and Indy Hartwell. And finally, round number 6 from Monday night, Raw selects The Final Testament, which is Karrion Kross, AOP, Scarlett, and Paul Ellering. And Raw selects Bronson Reed, which was, no surprise there given how his Intercontinental title match ended with Sami Zayn on Monday night, which was basically without a real winner decided. So you knew he wasn't going anywhere. SmackDown selects DIY, Johnny Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa, which makes sense with Candice and Indy moving. And SmackDown selects Blair Davenport from NXT. So here is the updated roster for Monday Night Raw. We have the World Heavyweight Champion Damian Priest. We have the Women's World Champion Becky Lynch, Intercontinental Champion Sami Zayn, and World Tag Team Champions The Miz and R-Truth. Also on Raw, CM Punk, Drew McIntyre, Seth Rollins. Rollins, also like Drew McIntyre, Fightful reported this week, has signed a new WWE contract. And the report states that it is believed to be a multi-year deal for, quote, big money, because his contract was set to be up in June. So you knew we were going to hear something on that front. And his wife, too. Becky's contract also is supposed to be up in the next few weeks, and we have not heard anything about that. So I would think she'll be the next big announcement that gets made. Rollins, by the way, was photographed at the Kentucky Derby with Becky, and he had a new look. I didn't see any long hair. Unless it was just the camera angle and it was hidden behind his head and I couldn't see it, but he had a hat on. He looked bald. I'm not saying he is bald. I'm just saying from the photo, he looked bald. So Rollins is staying on Raw. Jey Uso is staying on Raw. Sheamus, Braun Strowman, Imperium, Braun Breaker, Liv Morgan, Damage Control, Ricochet, Bronson Reed, Ivar, Alpha Academy, which includes Chad Gable, the Creed brothers and Ivy Nile are staying on Raw. Now, the Alpha Academy, that being Otis and Tozawa, they lost in their bid to become World Tag Team Champions. And so that could give Chad Gable all the more reason to dump the dead weight and pick up with the Creeds and Ivy Nile, but his heels. That's what I'm looking for. That's what I would do. LWO is also on Raw, the Judgment Day, the New Day, the Final Testament, New Catch Republic, Caden Carter and Katana Chance, Alba Fire and Isla Dawn, Natalya, Shayna Baszler, Zoe Stark, Odyssey Jones. What an odyssey it's been for this guy. He was drafted to Raw last year. Never used. Never used. So now he's been drafted to Raw for a second time. Maybe second time's the charm. And from NXT, Raw picks up Ilya Dragunov, Lyra Valkyria, Kiana James, and Dijak. Dijak is kind of a wild card here because the last time we saw him on the main roster, it was part of Retribution, one of the worst factions of all time, and it took him a long time to shed the stink of T-Bar. But he tried to distance himself from it in NXT. He's a talented guy. He's got some size. I don't see any reason why he shouldn't get a shot and why he doesn't have a shot to get over. So good for him that he finds himself back on Raw. Here's the updated SmackDown roster. We have the Undisputed Champion Cody Rhodes, Women's Champion Bayley, U.S. Champion Logan Paul, Tag Team Champions Grayson Waller and Austin Theory. We have the Bloodline, which includes Solo Sikoa, Tama Tonga, and Paul Heyman. And now Tonga Loa, although he wasn't drafted. Bianca Belair, Jade Cargill, Randy Orton, Kevin Owens, AJ Styles, LA Knight, The Pride, Nia Jax, who I think may be your queen of the ring this year, Naomi, Tiffany Stratton, Andrade, Legado del Fantasma, Shinsuke Nakamura, the OC, which includes Michin, Cedric Alexander and Ashanti Theodonis, Chelsea and Piper, Pretty Deadly, DIY, Candice and Indy, Giovanni Vinci, Apollo Crews, Tegan Knox, and from NXT, Baron Corbin back on the main roster, Carmelo Hayes, and Blair Davenport. I look at that SmackDown roster. The first thing that jumps out at me, not a lot of obvious challengers for Cody Rhodes. Randy Orton is the most obvious one. It could be as a heel. It could be as a babyface. It doesn't really matter. I think heel would make more sense, though. Cody even name-dropped him at the press conference yesterday as a potential opponent. He also mentioned LA Knight's name. You have Kevin Owens on that roster. Maybe Logan Paul could be an eventual challenger, but not now. And of course, we don't know when The Rock is going to be back. It sounds like if they do that match, it won't be until WrestleMania next year. But I wouldn't say there's this huge plethora of obvious opponents for Cody Rhodes, so they're going to have to do some work on that. The women's divisions, though, they got a nice shot in the arm. So we'll see how they get booked, which is even more important. The tag team scene for the men is very rough on the heel side, especially on Raw. The Authors of Pain, that is the only heel tag team as of this moment right now on Monday Night Raw, is AOP. That's scary. They could do tag matches with different Judgment Day members, but those aren't real teams. And now Dominic is out for 6 to 8 weeks, so they can't even pair him up with McDonough. All the more reason why the Creeds need to go heel soon. Raw was the decisive winner of the draft this year. How much of that has to do with the Netflix deal? Maybe part of it. But January is a long ways off, and they could easily move people around through trades between now and then if they want to. Which brings me to this next point. Triple H needs to seriously reevaluate the future of the draft if he wants to do more of these. It is boring. Okay, in its current format, it is boring and it has very little value to begin with when we constantly see people going back and forth between Raw and SmackDown anyway, all throughout the year. This has been my biggest issue with the whole concept of a draft anyway now for years. Oh, well, it's the Royal Rumble season, so of course you're going to have some crossover and some back and forth. Oh, it's WrestleMania season, so of course you're going to have some back and forth between the brands. Oh, it's Money in the Bank. You have men and women from both brands in each of the matches, so of course there's going to be some back and forth. Oh, it's War Games. And so on and so on. It's not much of a brand split to begin with. And you can have 75% of these people staying right where they are and expect that the draft is going to make for good television. It doesn't. You also, this year, had multiple instances of big stars being overlooked and drafted in the later rounds, round 3, round 4, in favor of people who had no business being picked before them. And we got no explanation from Adam Pearce. We got no explanation from Nick Aldis as to why they made the moves that they did. If sports-based presentation is what they're going for, it would be nice to know why they made some of the moves that they did, because having Legado del Fantasma being chosen over the Judgment Day, or Candice LeRae and Indy Hartwell being drafted before DIY, or Nia Jax being drafted before AJ Styles and LA Knight, only makes the GMs look incompetent at their job. My idea would be to just make use of trades. Now that they have proper general managers for the show again, you could do year-round trades. You could even impose a trade deadline like they have in real sports. But honestly, the most intriguing part of this year's draft for me were who the NXT call-ups were going to be. And cutting back to the Performance Center to show each person finding out, when we all did, that they would be moving and getting that real reaction from them. And I'm sure some of them already knew they were moving, but that's what they were going for. That's what they were showing you on TV. What I would propose is making the draft NXT only going forward, which, by the way, would also make NXT feel more important coming off of its big move to the CW network. As for the main roster talent, you just utilize trade deals between the GMs. And it doesn't have to be 1-for-1. It could be 2-for-1 if there's a bigger name involved. It could be one of these blockbuster 8-person trades. You hear about these in sports sometimes. It could literally be anything they want it to be. You have trades. You have other talent that throughout the year announce they want to test out free agency. Their contract with Raw is coming due and they want to test the waters. Adam Pearce goes up to them and says, hey, have you signed that new contract yet? And the person says, no, you know what? I think I want to test out the market. Now you have a storyline where they're negotiating with Adam Pearce. They're negotiating with Nick Aldis for the best deal. And we wait to see which brand they ultimately choose to sign with. Because if WWE is mostly content with the makeup of these rosters, it was very clear to me this year that they really didn't want to move that many people. But they knew they had to do a draft. If that's the case and they really don't want to move a lot of people, then this is the better format. This is a much better format. And with only NXT talent being eligible to be drafted, we know going into it, we're going to get some actual movement to strengthen both of these rosters.